Good afternoon everybody and welcome to our sunset safari on this beautiful day. Now it is World Elephant Day today, so hopefully we're going to celebrate all things elephant as we bumble around the bush for the next 3 hours. Now my name is Tristan and on camera today I've got Sinzo, and like I say, this is a live safari, which means that we want to hear from all of you. Questions or anywhere or anything that you would like to say. Hashtag Safari Live or on the YouTube channel and chat. Right, so like I was saying, it is World Elephant Day, which means that we are going to try and head towards some of the water holes, see if we can't find some of our big gentle giants that we had yesterday. We had such an incredible experience yesterday as we sat amongst that massive herd. We had the big bull towering over us and it really was a special afternoon. So we're going to try to see if we can't replicate that for Elephant Day today and see if we can't have lots of magical sightings with them. Failing to find any Ellies, we'll try and see if we can't discuss some of their tracks, their dung or anything that is elephant related. So if you've got any elephant questions, please send them through. And I think Tara is going to be heading towards Chitwa Dam to see if maybe there's any sign down there, and then later might be going to go and check out what's happening at the buffalo kill that the Inkhum has made. I believe there were reports of some male lions in the form of the Birminghams being around, so hopefully they will still be there this afternoon and we'll be able to catch up with them. Now it's not just me out here, Tara is still here, still with us, and she's eager to say hello, so let's go across to her and some very cute little piggies.
Good afternoon everybody and welcome to Djuma Game Reserve. And I know I haven't left the country yet. I know a few people were saying that it was my last drive, but it's not. I've still got 3 more drives with you. My name's Tara and joining me on camera this afternoon is Sebastian, and it is wonderful to be out here. Bright blue skies, the temperature is pretty hot so I think it really does feel like summer has arrived. So I think we're going to take a little drive down towards maybe Treehouse or Twin Dams, and we may even try and get ourselves over to Chitwa Dam and see if there's any elephants swimming there. Keep your fingers crossed. And then we might make our way back up to the lions once it gets a bit cooler. So I think that's our plan this afternoon, but it would be lovely to catch up with some Ellies for World Elephant Day as well. So I think these warthogs seem to be heading off, or at least not giving us the best view in the world. That's quite a decent sized tusher on that warthog there, isn't it? Sure. Oh, that's actually a better view now. So you can see kneeling, but it's actually the wrist that they're kneeling on, but yeah, I can't think of another word to use for it, so we'll say it's kneeling. And you can see the female actually using that really hard nose of hers to actually dig into the soil, and obviously the soil is going to be baked very, very hard in the sun. So that just gives her just that little bit more leverage being that close to the ground there, which is why they kneel on those wrists. You can see the little one at the back doing it. Now they do build up those calluses over time, so they're not actually born with them. Oh, it looks like there's a lapwing there in view as well. Hi David, and welcome on board this afternoon. David asking if there's a day that we could give over to an animal that I would actually quite enjoy to have raising awareness to. To be honest, I think the Endangered Species Day possibly covered that, because there are so many animals that I think are actually in danger of being lost if we're not careful. Certainly the pangolin, that's really heavily poached because of the scales. I think it's like $1,000 per scale. And they do have quite a few, so sadly they are poached quite a lot, and that's not just the African pangolins, that's the Asian ones as well. So I think they have actually changed the trade in them. I think they have banned all trade in pangolins now, which hopefully would help reduce the trade, but even so, I think certainly awareness needs to be raised about them. But unfortunately there are so many animals that are under threat. And yeah, as I say, if we're not careful, we don't have a conservation mind, we could end up with some serious losses, I think. But hopefully we can enjoy celebrating those animals as well. And as I say, we had lions on Lion Day, so hopefully we can find some elephants on Elephant Day. And again, unfortunately, the poaching of elephants has increased again for the ivory. So yeah, unfortunately very, very sad, but hopefully we can find some of those animals to hopefully raise awareness and bring some joy to you back home. So let's carry on. Hopefully this warm temperature is going to help them, bring them down to the dams to swim. Ellie's absolutely loves swimming, and it's one of the best areas to see elephants enjoying themselves. So we're going to head off, see if we can catch up with them. And remember, this is live, so if you do have any questions this afternoon or any comments, send them through to #SafariLive. And on the YouTube channel, and the ladies back in Final Control are ready and waiting and very eager to pass on all your comments and thoughts and questions. And it's wonderful to get everybody involved. That is the beauty of what we do here at Safari Live. So I think everybody has taken shelter in the thicker bush, quite possibly. There's no one out on quarantine. So hopefully Tristan's going to have a little bit of luck heading down towards Treehouse Dam this afternoon. So let's see if he's caught up with anything so far.
Not just yet, Tara. I'm just enjoying the beautiful sunshine that we've got at the moment. And before I got towards Treehouse, I thought I might just take a quick turn past Sydney's Dam, because I was on Vuatela Access and I thought to myself, well, why not just head north, check Sydney's Dam. It's also a great place to have a little look in case Mvula is around. We know he's been hanging about up that area, and yesterday afternoon they had Impala up in that area. So for those of you that don't know Impala is a young female leopard that comes from the western side of Simbambili. Was born to Insele, which is the daughter of Salehesh, who's a female that's dominant on that side. And so she was hanging around on Buffelshoek yesterday, not too far north of the boundary. So it's just worth coming up into this area and having a little look if there's any sign of those two while we check the dam and see if there aren't any eddies drinking at Sydney's Dam, as they often do. So that's the reason why we've just taken a slight detour on our way down towards Treehouse. In fact, it's not a slight detour, it's a massive detour, but well, it is what it is. Other than that, as Tara says, it seems like a lot of the animals are in hiding, or so to speak, but it's more because it's warm. They're not really hiding, they just found themselves nice shady sections. I would imagine the Mulawati riverbed will be a very popular spot on an afternoon like this, not only for the big creatures like elephants, but you'll find probably a number of impalas, kudu, nyala, all spending time under those big shady trees that frequent the banks of the Mulawati. So I would imagine Tara's journey down to Twin Dams will be a busy one, hopefully, with lots of animals to show. And because it's elephant day, ooh, James, you say World Elephant Day and Cat Day all rolled into one, and who's going to be the first one to make an appearance? Well, James, I'm not quite sure, but it should be an interesting one. And if it goes along the trend that we've had this week, every drive I think we've pretty much had elephants and a cat this week, so hopefully it will continue. Now, before we get into elephants and cats, if you have a look here on the road over there, you can see a very nice big clear snake track. So because of the temperature we've got today, it's much warmer. We've had a few days of warmth. This is not uncommon to see when you get temperatures like this. This will be a snake that is moving around. It's absorbed some heat during the morning and is now being able to move and go into a different area. I also see that there is a termite mound not too far from us, and that is often a haunt for a snake that would produce a track of this size. This is a massive track that we see, and potentially that snake has spent time in that mound, sunned itself, and now is out and potentially looking for a meal. A snake like this and the track that we see, in all likelihood, is either that of a black mamba or a cobra, and there's not many other snakes that would produce a track this wide, and also we can tell that because of the way that the track goes. So if it was something like a puff adder or a python, you would find that the track would tend to be a lot more linear, so they almost walk on their ribs and they spend a time walking straight, whereas when you get things like the mambas and the cobras, they tend to slither and move like this, and they actually make a very waved form. And so we can see that here, as it's come over the road, it's gone in this wavy section like this, and its body, as it's trying to get traction to push itself forward, has pushed this soil up and made a nice big raised platform here. The body then gets some grip and it's able to then push forward. And this snake seemed to have moved very quickly over the road, which is not untypical, because remember, as soon as a snake is on a road like this, it is massively exposed, and we know we've been seeing a lot of the snake eagles around in recent times, and they will then be somewhere close by. They spot that snake on the road and they come flying in at speed and try and grab those. So that's why they move quite quickly when they go across roads. But if it was something like a python or a puff adder, we would have seen it moving straight, and if then something came, it would start to wiggle like that. So this is more indicative of one of those snakes. And like I say, just because of the thickness of the track would indicate a very large snake, or a wide, thick, heavy set snake, which is generally our cobra species or our mamba species. So that's how we can tell from a track who is who. But cool to see. I wonder if we won't get some snake sightings in the next few weeks. It's the kind of weather that snakes do come out. Remember, they've had a long winter of dry, cool weather, which is periods of quite a bit of inactivity. And now as it starts to warm up, these snakes are going to be hungry. They're going to be wanting to look for food. So any chance they can get, if it's warm like this and there's a mice or any sort of mammal that they can go after, or even other snakes and lizards, they certainly will be on the prowl for those. So nice to see. We'll have to keep our eye out for some snakes in the branches. And funny enough, September, October is probably the best time for snakes, for us to see the snakes, because what happens is that we have these trees that haven't got their leaves yet, and so when the snakes sit in the tree, it's actually a lot easier to spot them than in the middle of summer when the leaves are all up there and it's harder. They camouflage them much better and it becomes a lot harder to see them. Now Aubrey, you say you need to see the snake. Well Aubrey, I would love to track that snake down, but once it gets into the grass, it's almost impossible to see where it's gone. You know, it doesn't leave a massive line in the grass like something like an elephant or a buffalo, or even the cats would leave. So they're not harder to find like that, but I will keep my eye out and we'll try and see if we can't spot some. In fact, the best way is also at night with a spotlight, because their little shine in the tree gives them away quite often. So we'll definitely look around and see what we can find. So Nancy, you say sounds dangerous. Well, it could be, I suppose. Interestingly enough though, I'm just thinking to myself, it was about, I would say, 2-3 months ago, maybe 2 months ago, I actually drove this exact road and I had a track very similar to that crossing just north of where we saw the track, just where I've come from. And so I wonder if it's not the same snake. You will find that some snakes are territorial and will stay in the same area. So snouted cobras, you often see them on the same termite mounds, mambas. So I wonder if there isn't a territorial snake in this area, and one day we'll get to actually see who's the one that is leaving all these mysterious signs on the road. Now, other than our snake track, not too much else happening at this stage. David, you're wondering how snakes hydrate. Well, snakes actually will drink quite often. That's what we're looking for. Tracks for some elephants. So that's good, encouraging signs that we can see here. They're coming from the Buffelshoek side, coming southwards. So if you have a look over there, you'll be able to see some big round footprints. There we go. So an elephant's track is pretty unmistakable. You can't really mistake it for anything else out here. It's a big circular disc pattern that we see, and you can see there's a really smooth edge on the right hand side of that track where the leaf is, and then it goes a bit more wrinkly as it goes towards the left. Now that smooth side will be the back end of the track as this elephant is standing on that so much it ends up being smooth and wears it down a little bit, and so you can get an indication of the way this elephant was moving. And I was saying it's moving from the north to the south, and that's because of that smooth area on the right back side of it. Now this track is not very, very fresh, and I'll tell you why. Because one is, you can see a tire track has just clipped the front end of that track there. You can see the little tire track there, and the other side of it is, you see the leaf on top. If an elephant had stood there when that leaf was already there, that leaf would have been crushed into the soil and into the sand, whereas it's sitting on top, which means that this elephant probably walked here this morning sometime, and it's then gone over by leaves and vehicles. Right, well, I'm going to see where these tracks go and just see if I can't follow a little bit and find out where exactly they head to. And while I do that, let's go back to Tara, who's got, well, I think some stripy zebras, I think, in black and white.
Welcome back, everybody. So yeah, we've got a zebra here that's trying to work out how to get through the brush packing. There's another zebra on the other side there. And it's not quite sure how to get across because it's quite wide. Now, the brush packing, I think apparently they laid a cable around here. So they actually expose the ground, and the wind and the elements can actually take away the surface, the topsoil. So the wind can blow it. If you do get any rain, it can be washed away. So what they do is they put a load of branches across, so it actually stops the erosion of the soil, but it also helps to trap any seeds that might fall in there. It can then protect the seedlings once they grow from animals actually eating them. So it's just to encourage the bush. Well done. I don't think I'd like to try that, because they actually do use branches with spines on them. Again, it should deter animals from spending too much time in there and trying to eat the saplings. So it's just to encourage the rejuvenation of the bush a lot quicker than what it would do if it was just left. Yeah, how are you going to get across? Are you going to take the same route? No, I don't think so. So these are Birchall zebra. They are a subspecies of plain zebra, but apparently you've got jackal, so we need to go and see that.
We do indeed. This is such a nice surprise at this time of the day. There's two side-striped jackals. Now, that's the one that's trotting off. The other one has disappeared already into the long grass. Oh, are you going to go to the toilet? Is that what you think of this afternoon? When making a hasty retreat, this is not what to do. It's not time to go to the toilet when trying to run away from what you're a bit nervous of. But anyway, when nature calls, you've got to go. Oh, did you finish going to the toilet? No, you didn't. You silly thing. Oopsie. It's still hanging on by a thread there, unfortunately. But there goes our side-striped jackal. And like I said, yes, finish going to the toilet before you... I don't know what even to say about that. This poor jackal, I don't know why, for some reason decided that while fleeing it's time to lighten the load, and is caught between being scared of us and having to go to the toilet. And you can see it's trying its level best to quickly get rid of it before it goes. No, still not out properly. Rather finish up before you run away, young one. I suppose it's not young, but... The other one also ran off to the left-hand side like that, and Senzo managed to spot them. I don't know how. They were lying up in some shade, and they just perked up their heads, and so Senzo pulled off a great spot to see them. And this is super exciting. I know that there's a couple of you that really love to see the jackals, and we don't get to see them that often, so this is quite a special sighting. So it's quite a special sighting for a number of reasons. It's not only special that we seem to have a special jackal that can't seem to get rid of its dung quick enough to get out of here. There we go. Now it's moving off. Now, Riti, you say your first time on a live drive. Well, I'm glad you've finally seen your jackals, and I'm sorry it's been a bit of an awkward sighting, but nice to see now that it stopped trying to go to the toilet. You can see that's that typical jackal swagger that they've got, and it's going to try and find some shade somewhere where it can lie down. The other jackal was seen somewhere in that direction. It was the last time I saw it running away, and you can see how they're quite small and they move around, and every now and then big ears will perk up. There comes the other one, just to the right of that one, Senzo. You'll see it coming out shortly, hopefully. It was moving towards the one on the left, so I'm sure it's going to pop out as well. Wouldn't it be nice to see both of them on screen? So Sam, you're wondering if they do like the sun. Sam, not really. It's hot now, and you must remember jackals' peak time of activity is much like lion and leopard. They tend to spend most of their time in moving around just after dusk and just before dawn, and so now it's hot. They've got a fur coat. It's really not that comfortable to be lying out in the sun. If you've had dogs, Sam, you'll know that they try and seek some sort of shade, and it's not really that fun to lie in the hot sun all day. So they'll try and sit there, and then as it cools down, then they'll go out and start foraging. Now, interestingly enough, we get two species of jackal here. We get the black-backed jackal and the side-striped jackal. Now, the black-backed jackal, we tend to see scavengers a lot more. There you can see the face of the one on the right. It's just poking through the bush there. There we go. It's found itself some shade to lie down. Now, the black-backed jackals tend to scavenge a lot more than what these guys do. These guys are prolific hunters, and you'll find them out in open areas like this where there's going to be a number of small rodents moving around, insects that they can then go after, and they'll hunt quite effectively during those periods. Then what you'll find is if there is a carcass around here that they can potentially scavenge on, these guys will do so. And we've noticed over the last few years is that the jackal population here in the Sabi Sands unfortunately has taken a massive decline, and it's probably due to dogs and livestock and things on the outskirts of the reserve that bring in distemper and rabies that has caused a massive crash in the jackal population. But also what we've noticed is there's been an increase in the number of side-striped jackals as opposed to black-backed jackals. The side-striped is slightly larger, and it seems as though they are pushing black-backed jackals out of certain areas and taking over for themselves. So really special to see these guys. I'm going to try and see if I can't just manage to reposition a little bit better now that they're laying down. Maybe they've got a bit more relaxed with us, and I'll be able to actually get us a slightly better view. But it will be something that will be great to work on. If we know that the jackals are here, it means that they are spending a lot of time in this area, and they are territorial animals, and so we'll have to just try and spend lots more time here, try and get them habituated to us, and hopefully this will be a sign of a lot more jackal sightings to come with this particular section. So while I try and see if I can't get a better view for all of you, let's go back to Tara and see how her journey towards Twin Dams is going.
Welcome back, everybody. That is definitely something to see, because you don't get a chance to see jackal very often. But having said that, this is like the third time this week we've seen side-striped jackal. That is brilliant. But they are usually very much, now you see me, now you don't. So definitely have to catch them while we have them. So our zebras have successfully made it across the brush packing, and it was a little bit touch and go. I think the other one's quite happy to have joined the rest of the family now. So they are Birchall zebra, as I was saying. They are a subspecies of plain zebra, and you can see there's that brown stripe on the rump, and that's very characteristic of the Birchall zebra. They call it a shadow stripe. Now, it's difficult to really sex a zebra. Check that, Wendy. Great minds think alike. So Wendy, just asking how you sex a zebra. So this is live, by the way. I really didn't know that was coming. But yeah, it's quite difficult to sex a zebra. You either actually have to ask the zebra to open its mouth and have a look at the canines and compare the canine teeth of a male with that of a female, because they are actually larger in a male. They use those for fighting. So the pointy teeth in your mouth, if you like. So there's the canines. So even zebras have canines. Otherwise, you have to ask them to lift the tail and see if there is a stripe, a thick stripe for a female and a thin stripe for a male. And if you can do that, you're a better person than me, because I still have not been able to really see those stripes. Occasionally you can see it quite well, but yeah, otherwise having to look for the genitalia underneath between the legs. That's really the best way. Even I've seen stallions slightly smaller than females, so even size doesn't help. If you might notice when we've got the back end and you can see the belly expanded around it, that can help, but zebras build up a lot of gas because they are hindgut fermenters, so they do all their digestion in what is the equivalent of our appendix, so the cecum, and they build up a lot of this gas, and so even the males can look quite bloated sometimes and look a little bit pregnant. So even then you can't quite go on that, but there are some females that are unmistakable. They are very, very large and very heavily pregnant, and they really do just, it looks so uncomfortable. I feel so sorry for them, and it's amazing that you only have the one foal when they're looking like that. I'm just going to try and roll down a little bit because I think they are behind. Okay, we're not rolling. Let me see if I can drive down a little bit so we can see them a little bit better. So there are 4 by the looks of it in that group. There could be a few more hidden behind the bushes. Oh, Joe, thinking I said a virtual zebra rather than a virtual zebra. Sorry, that was my pronunciation there. So virtuals rather than a virtual zebra. So getting a bit confused there. So sorry about that. So they are very real, although they are coming to you virtually, I suppose. So there you go, you can see the belly that I was talking about there. And actually when they run, they do let off that wind. So you don't want to be downwind of a zebra when it's running. It's very, very loud as well. Okay, so we shall leave this family of zebra and carry on down towards Twin Dams and maybe onto Chitwa Dam. See how we go. Maybe come across some elephant tracks. And whoop. Oh, of course, I forgot. Taylor loves elephants, doesn't she? It's her favourite day of the year, Elephant Day. So I think we definitely have to try and find some elephants for Taylor as well. So definitely swimming Ellies would be great. I haven't seen that yet. I know you guys had some wonderful views with Byron a few days ago. As I say, it is warm enough for them want to go swimming and cool down. It is, hey Snazzy, such a pretty day for a drive. It really is. So we're heading down Weaver's Nest Road, down towards Philemon's Cut Line. Just keeping a lookout for anyone, especially in these areas, so where it's next to a drainage line, where there's a lot of vegetation still, and still it's quite green. Oh, there we go, we've got an Impala there. Have they gone? Oh, I run off into the bush. Okay, camera shy. But yeah, just looking underneath any of the bushes, see if there's anybody sleeping there. So on a day like today, the cats are likely to be sleeping, waiting for it to get a bit cooler. Very sensible. Ah, there we go, some Impala just ahead of us. Are you going to come out this way? So we have been hearing the calling, that of the males who are rutting. Also making use of the shade this afternoon, resting while they chew the cud. Now I don't know if you just saw one or two of them actually just, there we go, that's the male, just chewing the cud. So he's already been foraging this morning, and he's now taking it easy, regurgitating all the large pieces that he's not able to digest. So he's throwing them back up into his mouth, mixing that with saliva, and it's got bacteria from his rumen, the first chamber of the stomach. So he's going to make it really nice and mushy, almost like a soup, and then he'll be able to swallow that down, and that will then be digested. Hi Tony. And Tony asking, are the Impala deer? And they're not, they're actually antelope. So two of the biggest differences between deer and antelope, if you have a look at the horns on the male, they don't branch out, whereas on a deer they do branch, and they don't shed the horns, whereas deers do. Deer shed them every year. So you can kind of use the horns to guesstimate the age, and obviously they will be controlled by genetics and how fit the animal is. So the larger males who have large horns will have good genetics and be nice and fit, and you will get some males who the horns don't actually grow as tall as those fit males. So there was a younger male that was just being shown on the left, and that's the older male there on the right. So you can see there's quite a big size difference in the horns. Now he's probably about 2 years old, that one on the left. So it's got some height to the horns, and then you can see the yearlings that show a little bit smaller, and the animal itself is a little bit smaller. Yeah, definitely Jacqueline. It's actually quite mesmerising watching them moving their jaw from side to side, chewing the cud. So Sam wanting to know if they fight over food, and not really, Sam. It's all to do with fighting over the females, and more importantly territory that will attract the females. So if they're holding a good territory that incorporates good food, maybe even water, then the females are more likely to go to where he is, and then he can defend those females against other males. So the main rut or breeding season for these guys is March, April time. This one is a very short rut, and that just captures any other females that maybe haven't fallen pregnant the first time round for whatever reason. So they will fight over those females, but it's a very short rut. And as I say, we have been hearing them, they have been fighting, but you kind of do see the old rams are a lot more laid back about the younger rams being there, whereas in the big rut no ram is allowed anywhere near the dominant ram, so that young boy would not be welcome. He'll be chased off in the main rut. So you can see ears pointing forward, looking for any detection for predators, so any smells, any sounds, anything like that. And obviously there's plenty of eyes and ears watching out for those predators. Animal lover wanting to know what the horns are made out of. So the horns are made of keratin, and that's a substance that's found throughout the mammal kingdom. So we have keratin in the form of fingernails and hair. Rhinos have keratin, that's their horn. It's like tightly packed hair on the inside of the horn and more like the nail on the outside. So the keratin covers the horns. And the pangolin, I mentioned earlier, the pangolin scales are also made from keratin. Porcupine quills, so it's quite a versatile substance. I think pretty much every mammal possesses it in some form or another. So I'm just going to see if we can get a slightly better view as we drive on through. On the inside of that keratin sheath, it's actually bone. But that keratin is very hard. I mean, if you think about your fingernail, it is quite durable, and that's why we have the fingernails, is to protect the fingertips, the soft, vulnerable areas. The hair on top of our head protects our head from the sun. Getting a glare from the Impala there. Now you might notice as well the location of the eyes. So if you look at the eyes where they're situated on the head, they're on the either side of the head. Now that is not a problem for them. That's actually to increase the possibility of detecting predators. So they can see both sides. They can see almost 180 degrees either side, which is obviously very important because you want to be able to pick up a predator as quickly as possible so that you can actually run away. So you'll notice prey species tend to have their eyes on the side of the head, whereas predators need to be able to judge distance because they'll pounce and they'll chase, so they do have to judge distance. So that's why they have the eyes like us, so on the front, facing frontwards, so they have what we call binocular vision. Yeah, all trying to keep cool in the shade there. Hi, Sue's in Germany, asking what the difference between a gazelle and an antelope is. And a gazelle is a type of antelope, just like the impala is a type of antelope. So we don't get the gazelles here. They're further north in Africa. The Thompson's gazelle, you might have heard of. That's more towards Kenya, Tanzania way. But you can see all those eyes and ears looking at different directions. They are, Jackie. I like impala. I know they're quite common, but they're just such a pretty little antelope. Hi Joe, welcome on board. Asking if springbok are found in Djuma, and they're not. They tend to be more of a arid antelope, so you tend to find them more to the west, where it's much drier. But they do look very similar to impala, but they have white faces, and they actually have a black stripe, or kind of a dark brown, I suppose, that separates the dark brown from the light brown on the body. Whereas if you look at the impala, they've got dark brown on top, light brown, and then cream on their bellies. Now, it's also thought that's to help them look less like an antelope. So when they're out in the open sun, the sun's shining on the backs, and that makes them look lighter. So they look less animal-like. I'm not sure if I really believe it. It's known as counter shading. As I say, I'm not a great believer in that one, but that is the theory behind their coloration. I can't see how that works very well. There's certainly the lines, the stripes, and the spots and things like that to break the outline up. But yeah, the counter shading in this one. Yeah, I think there is one male there that's kind of thinking he saw something. So he's just given an alarm call. There is a male just to the right of the screen. I think if we can go a bit further across. Oh, he's moved. But he was also looking quite intently just behind them. But they're not quite sure. Unfortunately, impala are a bit scared of their own shadow as well. Hi Snazzy, wondering how they would get along with the deer. And they would eat different parts of the plant, different types of plant, so that's why you get a lot of different antelope actually in the same area because of that. And the deer, it would be the same thing if you did have the overlap. Now in Asia, especially in India, they do have an overlap. They do have antelope and deer there. That's, I think, off the top of my head, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the only continent where you do find the antelope and deer mixing naturally. So I know we do have some deer in South Africa, but they were actually brought in. They weren't here naturally. And I think in America, in the Americas, they don't have antelope. But someone might want to just double check that for me. But certainly in India they have antelope like nilgai and blackbuck. And the blackbuck actually do look very similar to an impala. It's about the same size as well, but they well, black in colour, and they have the white, but they do have the horns very similar to that of the Impala. Nilgai are much larger. Nilgai are probably like a small eland. And then you get the axis deer, the Chitwa, which look like a fallow deer. Okay, so they're moving off. So we gonna carry on. Okay. Oh, Sam. Interesting question there. So if a predator finds and attacks an Impala, will the Impala fight back? Very much so, Sam. Those horns, you do not want to get on the wrong side of them. Even the females will butt. They'll use their heads to butt you out the way. They can kick as well, so if you get on the back end, they can give quite a nasty kick. In fact, actually, one of the most dangerous antelope in the bush is supposed to be a bushbuck, which is slightly smaller than the Impala, but if they're cornered, they are known to be quite aggressive, as are most animals. If you corner an animal, that's when, you know, the fear kicks in, and they will fight for survival. So if they are feeling trapped or cornered, if they have to go through you to get away, they will, and they will use whatever they can to make that happen. And it's the same with us, you know, if someone corners you and that person is threatening you, you are going to do what you can to get past that person. So that's why you should never block in an animal. So as you see when we're driving around, we see the animals, we always make sure that they've got an escape route, and we always read the animal, and if they're showing us that they're not happy with us being there, we will actually move back or change our position so that the animals stay nice and relaxed. So I'm not sure if Tristan's made it down to Treehouse Dam yet, but we're going to take a quick detour there. Oh, new viewer Jay, welcome on board this afternoon. Asking if we have any lions. And we do, and I'm hoping we're going to go and see some lion activity in a short while. It's still very hot, so we're kind of doing a loop because it is Elephant Day. It would be nice to actually find some elephants for you. And once we do manage to maybe find some elephants swimming, we're going to try and go down to Chitwa Dam, so we'll head down there. Very big bellies. So while we take a slight detour, we're going to see how Tristan's done with tracking his elephants.
Well, I was on my round trip towards where the Ellies were, and I've come across tracks for a male leopard. Now I hear that Mvula was seen this morning somewhere around One-Eyed Pan, and the tracks that I found were coming eastwards, but I'm just trying to work out whether these tracks are from this morning or not, because there's lots of footprints of people walking up and down and a few tracks that have been circled, but the ones that I found weren't circled at all. So I'm just trying to work out from the guys whether or not they saw them. But it would be a nice surprise if Mvula was around. We know that he does like to move around quite a bit in the heat, and so unfortunately I've been sidetracked by those again, which is kind of what happens to me. I feel like I see leopard tracks and I can't let it go. I don't know why. I will try my very best to let it go today because it is World Elephant Day. So I'm going to have a short brief look around for Mvula, and then I'll carry on with those elephant tracks and come back here a bit later in case we're not successful. but he seems to be loving this little corner at the moment. He's kind of going back and forth, and I would love to show you the tracks, but where the tracks are, it seems the gremlins are in full force there, so I can't seem to get reception exactly where the tracks are themselves, but they come pretty much from where One-Eyed Pan is, so I wouldn't be surprised if they are. But he's been up and down here so much over the last few days, it's difficult to work out which tracks are which and which ones are worth following. Nothing further south here, so I think I'm just going to go one more time around Sandy Patch and see if there isn't any sign of anything on that side. Unfortunately, we did try and see if we couldn't get a better position for the jackals, but the jackals decided they wanted none of us. Now that they were lighter, they got up and ran away. But that has got to be one of the more entertaining jackal sightings I've ever had. Poor jackal was in a serious state of confusion by what was going on. It must be difficult when nature calls and you are petrified and want to run away at the same time. Not easy. So Jay, who's a new viewer, hello Jay, you want to know who Mvula is. Mvula Jay is one of our older male leopards. He's a bit of a legend in this area. He used to be the dominant male around Djuma, and he was then pushed out by a newer male called Tingana, and since then he's been this nomadic individual that's roamed around this area, and he seems to just pop up in the most random places, and every time everyone writes him off, he seems to arrive again, and he's got the most incredible eyes. So he's a real legend and a real character, and that's why we like to spend time looking for him. He's got the most incredible face and eyes, and he's lots and lots of history and character to him, so that's why we try and spend a lot of time looking for him. Now, I did have a bird that was here, but I was too busy talking about Mvula, and I think it's, oh no, there it is, I can see it. So you see it there, Senzo, just behind the tree. I might be a bit of a difficult one. You'll see its head bobbing around at the back. There's a red-billed hornbill. It was sitting beautifully on top of a branch, and then it decided to come down and look for food. What you might notice with this red-billed hornbill, if it hopefully exposes itself again, is that its beak is slightly open at the moment, and the reason for that is because it is warm. So when we see dogs or cats getting hot, they begin to pant, and it's the same thing with birds. The birds, it's not called panting, it's called gular flutter, but it is the exact same reasoning behind it. It's just trying to cool their body down, and you'll find that they open their beak slightly, and there'll be a rapid breath that allows them to then get a little bit cooler. And there we go, running along. And you can see how they use this beak to try and root around for food. These guys are incredible predators. You'll find them going after scorpions, large insects, and it's incredible the size of prey that they're able to overpower using that big heavy set beak. What have you found there? Seems as though it's found some sort of food item. You'll sometimes see them going towards elephant dung, and we're talking because it's elephant day. Even though elephants are destructive and sometimes will break trees, when they defecate, their dung is still full of nutrients, and that means that it's often inhabited by a number of different insects, and those insects then provide a perfect platform for these guys to find food. And you'll find hornbills often rooting through elephant dung, breaking it apart with that big beak and exposing termites and other grubs and beetles that are inside there, and then it's like a buffet. They just literally pick off as and when they can. So even though a hornbill is tiny, it relies a little bit on the elephants to provide a nice big food source for them to feed off. And there we go, hopping away into the distance. So we're going to leave our hornbill there. We should probably see quite a few more on our expeditions around. There are a lot of hornbills in this area, and I don't know if I said it was the red-billed hornbill, but it does have that red beak, and so it will definitely be a perfect one to... Sorry, I forgot my train of thought there. I was just listening to the radio. It sounds like some elephant somewhere. I can't hear exactly where, but I think Tara is quite close to where that is. I can hear it on the radio now, so I don't have to worry. At this stage, I'm sure Tara will be able to give us more information just now. Sometimes happens though, we get a bit of a lost in train of thought, but what I can show you now is I actually can show you a leopard track. So this is not the leopard tracks that I was looking for, but there are leopard tracks here, and these are tracks from yesterday, or yesterday, it was yesterday. They had a Mvula yesterday morning. So Senzo, I think that one over there is probably, no wait, these ones here are going to be better. Let me go to this one here in front. There we go. can you see them there, Senzo? Just on my edge over here. They're just walking up that way. I don't know if I'm maybe a bit close, but you should see them. It's just in that track. There we go. So there you can see the tracks for a leopard, but like I say, those are from yesterday. You can actually see where the Impala tracks are over the top. Tara had Mvula yesterday morning, and this is where he was. He then walked north from here and crossed over into Buffelshoek and walked up the road like that. So those tracks are not tracks that we need to be following at this stage, but you can see the little toes and the 3 lobes of the back pad as he's moved around. And there's a nice example of a back foot versus a front foot. So you can see quite an elongated track on the back foot, almost oval in shape, no presence of claws, and the toes right up against the pad. If we go to the left slightly for me, Senzo, there we go. That's a front foot over there, and you can see much more round in its shape, and you'll notice that it almost looks as a circle as opposed to an oval, and that's how you can tell front and back foot. It means though that this individual was moving quite quickly as he walked up the road, because his back foot has overtaken his front foot quite far. So it means that he was actually striding and not just taking a nice stroll like they do. If they walk normally and strolling around, you'll find then they do what's called a direct register, where that back foot will be there, and the front foot will be, and then the back foot steps straight over the top of it. When they walk faster, that back foot overtakes the gate, and you get that track that we've just seen now. Right, well, like I say, those are not tracks that unfortunately we can follow, because I had those yesterday afternoon already, so we'll leave those to their own devices. And I'm just going to check down Impala Plains, because Aubrey was telling me that he's on Sandy Patch now, so he's going to check that area, and he has tracks for a male leopard going up and down and heading towards this side. But I would imagine those are the tracks from Mvula from last night that then headed towards One-Eyed Pan. So the tracks that come back hopefully are the ones that we need to follow, but unfortunately they have been driven over, they've been erased by some grading. So what they've done is they've dragged some tires over the road, and that's squashed the fire break. So I can't see if the tracks actually crossed the fire break or not. So I'm waiting for the guys to get up into around Sydney's dam and see if they can't see the tracks there before I really start actually getting into tracking of that particular male. Riza, you say you so admire our ability to read the tracks. Well, Riza, at the end of the day, actually, myself and probably most of the other guides here will admit that we are not by any means expert trackers. We know roughly what's going on, but people like Herbie are on a whole nother level than all of us. They are able to read tracks in ways that we just can't, and it's only through spending time with them and actually actively practicing tracking, because tracking is an art that needs to be practiced. It's not something that you can just all of a sudden get out and do it. You need to do it more and more and more, and spend time with guys like Herbie that are able to show us the tracks and be able to read the tracks for us and teach us how to follow tracks. For those of you that are new viewers and don't know who Herbie is a tracker that we have here that helps us with our bushwalks, and he is very knowledgeable. He's from this area, spent all his life around here, and he knows the tracks backwards, and he teaches us a lot of what's going on. So while we seem to know quite a bit, we are nowhere near the level of some of the other guys that are out here, which is really cool, and we're fortunate that we do get to spend time with these guys as they show us how things work. Now, there is some kudu just off to my right hand side. They are standing underneath some shade. There you go, you can see them just between all the bushes over there, and I think this is going to be a common thread for our afternoon, as we're going to find a lot of animals in the shade. It's still very warm now, and I doubt that there's going to be too much movement just yet. The nice thing about a warm afternoon like this is it's going to mean, I would say probably in the next hour and a half, is that they are going to start moving towards water to rehydrate after spending the day in the hot sun, and we should have a lot of activity around the water holes. So it's definitely going to be a good place to look, and our kudus are just enjoying a bit of shade for now. You can see a little baby kudu in amongst the adults, and the little ones, although it's growing quite quickly. I would imagine that kudu is from the summer months, so somewhere around December, January, February, that area, and it's a little male by the looks of it. It's got little horns there, Senzo. I can't see nicely, but it looks like it might have... No, does it? I've got lots of glare on my monitor, and it's a bit far away for me to see. Yes, it does look like little horns that are sticking off there. Or is that a leaf behind it? No, they are little horns. So he's going to be a massive male at some point. but those little horns have just started to emerge, and it's incredible to think that by the time that guy reaches a fully grown male, his horns could potentially reach over 6 foot off his head. It really is an amazing growth that they go through, and you'll find when they first come out they're quite straight, and soon afterwards they're going to start to spiral and turn, and then they go outwards in a V shape off their head, and they then become these massive individuals with big, powerful, strong necks to be able to hold those horns up. And Tara was asking me that somebody had asked her the weight of kudu horns, and we were discussing it amongst us. And then you can see there comes an older male with his horns that have started turning already. And we were discussing the weight of kudu horns, and Tara was saying to me she's unsure, and we tried to research it. I also went through as much as I could to see if I could find a weight. It's easy to find lengths and girths and those kind of things, but weights, very difficult. But in my opinion, I would imagine when a kudu is alive that their horns can't weigh more than 15 kilograms. At the end of the day, even though it's bone, there's very little muscle on a horn structure. There's a little bit of tissue inside there that connects the keratin sheath, but other than that there's not too much else. So I would imagine around 15 kilograms would be the upper limit, but that is in no way a fact. I would love to actually know how heavy horns are. We were also discussing that we could weigh a set of horns, but those horns would be much lighter because of the lack of connective tissue from a dead animal, and also the keratin sheath itself dries out and becomes brittle and frail, and we know that horn boring moths will also start to feed off those horns, and so that will also lighten it. So it's going to be interesting to maybe one day find a fresh kudu skull and actually weigh it and just see just how much those horns do weigh, but I would imagine they can be quite heavy. Now, our kudus are slowly but surely crossing the road and heading off into the thickets, and so while they do that, I believe Tara has found the perfect animal to celebrate our day.
Yes, we have. Happy World Elephant Day, everybody, and I hope Taylor's watching so she gets her elephant fix as well. So it looks like I think this herd have already come down to the dam, but there looks like there's another herd slowly on its way down, so we might actually try and catch up with them. Yeah, they could have already been down as well. Actually, I think they're actually moving north. Oh, there we go. We've got a couple of big bulls. I'll just see where they're going to go. I don't think this pan is big enough for them to swim in, sadly. Now I am hearing a single impala calling over where the elephants are. And the herd that were here have actually gone to the other side of the dam wall. Yeah. Yeah, Linda. Saying yay. We have elephants. Okay, so what I think I might do is go the other side of the dam, just in case they do come down to the water again, but it looks like they have already been. So we'll go around to the other side and see if we can get a nicer view of them. So let's try that. Yeah, I think the rest of the herd are actually moving off to the north as well. So these impala did kind of take note of what was going on, but they've not really reacted to it. Just want to make sure that we're at a better angle for reversing down here. It's better. Hi Sam. I'm wanting to know when elephants swim. Do they swim all day or at certain times? I just come across water. Oh, let's gremlins might have caught us. So we're going to try and reposition while Tristan gives you an update on what he's found.
Well, I haven't found anything just yet, Tara. I've only just left the cruise, so I've not gotten very far at all since you last saw me. But no sign of anything, just checking the junctions carefully, making sure there's no sign of this leopard coming a little bit further south. But so far, not anything that I can see, so I would imagine, although, what's that? Nope, that's an old leopard track that's got impalas all over it, so that's not what we're looking for. Seems lots of leopard activity over this area the last few. Let's see. So you can actually see on the road here where they walked. Now I wonder if this is interesting. I'm going to ask the guys, because this looks like it's right in the middle of the road. So if you see just to my right here, Senzo, you can see just there is probably the clearest one where my finger is probably the best visual of the track itself. So over there somewhere. Let's see. There you go, you can see it just there. So there is another male leopard track over there, and that's right in the middle of the track, which means of the two track of the road. So it doesn't seem like any vehicles have driven over it. It's not to say that these aren't old. I'll have to actually look properly and check if I can't see some bird tracks over the top, but maybe these are actually the tracks that we're looking for. It's interesting to see how many tracks are moving around here. It's quite crazy. We know that Tingana and Tundi, when they were mating, they did walk down this road, and that's why I'm hesitant to think that these are fresh, but they look much fresher than what those tracks would have been. There's actually one track that's right near us here, which I don't know if you'll be able to get, Senzo. No, let me roll back a little bit. Now there's tracks that are literally right next to me that look much fresher than that. So there we go. Can you see that one there, Senzo? Just where the stick is here, just in front of the stick. There we go, just up to the left. There, look at how clean and clear that track looks. So it's this one just on the front side of that stick. Big toes, definitely a male leopard. A little bit up from there, Zenzo. That one right there. So you can see it's cutting all of the tire tracks at the moment, which means it's on top of most things. So I'm going to follow these and just check where they go. But like I said, I know that Tingana and Tundi did move in this area, and with the winter months that we've got and the lack of rain, it could be that nobody's driven here and nobody's actually touched those tracks since they walked here. But they do look a lot fresher than 3 days ago when they walked here. So I'm going to follow these and try and see where these end up taking me. Maybe Tingana was on a territorial patrol. We did hear him, what I suspected him last night. There was a big ruckus being made by a male leopard at one point right next to the camp, and it seemed like he then moved off from there. So we're just going to check these out and see what I can find. The problem is we're skirting right up against the edge of Arethusa, and so these tracks, if they even turn remotely to the west, the chances of us finding a leopard is probably very slim. So don't hold out too much hope for these, and we know Tingana can move a long way. But while I just double check and radio the guys and see if they did have these tracks this morning, let's go back to Tara, and hopefully she's kicked all the gremlins away so that you can enjoy the beautiful grey giants on their celebration day.
Yep, I think we managed to kick them off. The gremlins, that is, not the elephants. They've just joined us down here in the Milwati, just to the east of Twin Dams. And we've got quite a large bull who's playing hide and seek behind a very small tree at the moment, so I'm sure we'll get him into view shortly. But it looks like the rest of the herd are slowly moving north. There we go. I think you guys had quite an epic sighting of them in the Milwati yesterday with the little babies.
Yes, it was really, really nice.
Hi Richard, welcome on board this afternoon. Wanting to know how many muscles are in an elephant's trunk. It's around 8, I believe, that are broken down into, I think it's something like 140,000 fascicles. So it just has every manoeuvre possible that you could ever want from a trunk. Sideways, upways, stretch ways, compressed ways. I mean, I think it would be quite amazing to have a trunk, actually. Oh look, they're sharing a meal. All they need is a candle. Hi Jackie. Jackie wanting to know how old this female might be. I would say she's probably around maybe 30s, 40s. She doesn't have a very deep indentation in her head. So as they get older, you can actually start to see the indentations. I mean, they are quite a wrinkly animal anyway, and the wrinkles actually help to increase the surface area. So I don't know what she's doing, whether she's scratching her foot or whether she's actually using it to dig up a root or something. But yeah, with them being so large and that it's extremely hot in Africa, they do actually have to try and increase their surface area as much as possible to try and remove as much of that temperature as possible. So that's why they also have the huge ears. You can see there's lots of blood vessels in those ears, and that pumps blood, and I believe it's every 20 minutes all the blood in their body will be pumped around those ears. And as they flap them, it will actually decrease the temperature by up to 3 degrees. Hello, someone found something. Where did that come from? Did you hear it?
Maybe from behind us.
Somewhere behind us.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's linked to that alarm call that we had. Maybe they found somebody sleeping there. Either that or someone was just annoyed with somebody else. It's quite interesting that the family did start heading north, but the bulls are still feeding. Couldn't care less. So yeah, maybe let's go and just have a quick peek over the top there and see what we can find out, what caused the trumpeting there. Now usually when a family wants to move on, you hear this low rumble, and that's not what we heard. We just heard the trumpet. Now you see, now these are still here, so it could well be someone just had a bit of a tantrum. Hi, Catpole. That's a good question. How does an elephant react if they see a snake? Okay, we've got some Impala here who are on alert. Let's say these guys don't look too bad. It could even have been that youngster actually, because we did see a youngster the other day chasing everything off and trumpeting. And I think this is roughly where I was hearing the snort, so it could well have been these two boys rutting but not really giving the full call. So yeah, there's a little boy there. So So these guys don't seem to be too bothered. But yeah, asking about how they react to a snake. And I've never actually seen them come across a snake, but I have heard an elephant sort of did jump back a bit when they wrapped their trunk around a branch and there was actually a vine snake attached to that branch. So I did hear that they kind of got a bit of a fright. So I believe if they do come across them, they can get a fright. Let's say I've not actually witnessed it myself, I just heard it through the grapevine. So I'm wondering if there's any viewers out there who have been on safari that have come across an elephant. So if you have come across anything like that, please let us know. It'd be interesting to hear. Caitlin on board. She's 10 years old. Welcome on board, Caitlin. They can't, Caitlin. Even a baby elephant can't climb a tree. They're not able to hold on with their feet. But what they do is they push them over. So if there's marula fruits very high up and they're not able to get to those fruits, they will just simply knock it over instead and bring the fruits to their level. Where did that one go? Should we just pull forward slightly and just see? Because I think the other one went to the right here. So yeah, if you want to share your elephant stories, if you've come across an elephant that's found a snake, hashtag Safari Live, YouTube. If you can give us a brief encounter. There you go, Caitlin. Just crashing the way through the brush there. And yet they can be so delicate as well. They can pick a single blade of grass with that trunk. Can we go to the little bull? He's got an itch. He's using that branch. Oh, he's stopped now, but he was actually scratching his leg against that small branch. Oh, he's using his foot now. Okay. Obviously there's something very interesting in there. Hi Judy. Sorry, Julie. Julie asking, we tend to say venomous because venom tends to be injected and poison tends to be eaten. So if a venomous snake actually bit the elephant on the trunk, for example, if it was a puff adder, then it could actually swell up because the puff adder has cytotoxic venom and that just destroys cells, so they swell up and they become all black. And if they actually bit them on the trunk, I think that could be extremely painful and obviously cause a lot of issues for the elephant. And even, that I think if a snake could actually bite through the skin of the foot, potentially maybe, but I think they'd find it a bit difficult. But I'd certainly say if they got hold of the trunk, if it's a snake, a tree snake, a vine snake, or a mamba or something that does spend time in the trees, a boomslang, if they happen to catch the ear, I think it would be very unlikely. It would be like once in a million, but if they caught the ear, they would be able to bite through that. I'm wondering if it was this little one. He just seems to be just. Oh, I need a nice word for it, but up to mischief. he's going to go and see what Mum's eating. And that's very important, actually. So the youngsters do learn from the mothers what to eat, what not to eat. And a lot of that is actually where she's eating. They'll put their trunk in her mouth and taste what she's eating. He's probably around, I'd say maybe 8 years old, something like that, 7, 8 years old. So he's still got a while yet. When he gets to about 16, 18, then he might start moving further and further away from the herd to feed. Then he might meet up with a few other males. They might then go on and find a bull to go and spend time with and learn how to be males. I'm going to see if we can actually get a little bit closer. Very merry, saying she'd... Oh, sounds like gremlins are jumping on board again. So we'll bring Very Merry's story back just now, and we'll jump on with Tristan.
Well, those pesky gremlins around the Mulawati, you've really got to have your work cut out there to get rid of them. It's not a very pleasant experience dealing with all of them down there, but hopefully that will be solved. We are going to be doing little upgrades soon on the towers, and hopefully that will vanquish gremlins once and for all from that area. Now, we have had probably the most confusing little period. There are tracks for everything you can imagine, all going up and down all over the place, and everyone's actually a little confused as to what's going on. There's tracks for Shadow's cub, there's tracks for lions, which apparently could be the Styx Pride crossing from Arethusa's side, so we picked up those tracks. There's tracks for Tingana, and Mvula is just footprints everywhere, and so it's a bit of a battle to actually try and work out who's who, where they've gone, and what they're actually up to. There's also thrown into the mix a couple of Birmingham footprints, which I would imagine are from last night as well. So it's really quite difficult at the moment to see where things are going, because it's just tracks everywhere. So we're just slowly puttering about and just trying to see if we can't pick up maybe some alarm calls or something like that. It's also difficult because we weren't out this morning, so I don't know what tracks were around this morning and what weren't. The guys say they haven't driven some of these roads, so some of these tracks could be from yesterday afternoon or evening already, and we've just missed them because none of us drove around this area yesterday, and so I don't think some of these tracks are as fresh as we think they are, which throws a little complication and spanner into the mix. This is what happens when you're not out for a drive. It actually is interesting how quickly you can get thrown off as to what's going on, because when you're out every drive, you tend to be able to kind of focus on the tracks and move around, and you know exactly the movements of the animals. But as soon as you miss one of those drives, it becomes a lot harder to decode what's going on. But at least the footprints are there. It means that the animals must be around as well, and it's setting us up to a great second half of our cat a day. So hopefully, and cub has been so long since we see them, and I owe someone a belated birthday present in finding Shadow and the cub. So hopefully we'll find some of them and be able to redeem ourselves and stop the confusion that is reigning at the moment. You can see actually it's quite interesting. There must have been a lot of animals or predators moving around here last night, because most of the impalas that I've driven past are on high alert. They're all kind of twitchy and staring, so I think it was a tough night for them, and maybe the scent is still lingering of a lot of these animals where they walked around, so it probably wasn't a pleasant evening for impalas. So Kev, who's a new viewer, welcome Kev to the Safari Live family and to the largest safari vehicle in the world. Now, Kev, sorry, 2 seconds, there's just some impalas that are here in front of me. I'll get to your question shortly. but you can see all males, so bachelor herd that is moving around. And I was saying that they're a little bit on edge. Look at how they're standing and ears are perked up. Well, that one's now feeding, and one to the left is a little bit more perky than what they were, and just wondering what's going on. They check and they listen and they hear and they look just in case there's any sign of predators that we may potentially be following. It's quite common to see this with male impalas or any impalas when you arrive, is that they stop feeding and stop doing anything and just listen and look and try and see what's going on. But they are beautiful in this afternoon light. I really do enjoy seeing them. It seems as though their colours just pop when they're in this sort of golden afternoon sun. I suppose the morning sun they do also look very good, but in the morning they tend to be all puffy and to try and stay warm, whereas now this fur is sleek and shiny, and it really does look like a beautiful animal when they're like this. Kev, so you were wondering if the predators have the ability to read tracks. Sorry, I've got a bit sidetracked with the impalas. Kev, no, not really. They don't have the ability to see the footprints and to be like, that is a leopard. That's not the same thing. I'm sure they see them, but what will be there for them that's more reliable is the scent. So they're going to pick up the smell of that predator or prey animal, and we saw it the other night with the Nkuhumas. The Nkuhumas went down towards the dam. So the Nkuhumas is a lion pride in this area, Kev, if you're not sure of who they are. And the lion pride went towards a waterhole. There had been buffalo that had been wallowing at that waterhole earlier in the day, and from that they were able to pick up the scent of those buffalo and follow on their footprints where they had walked, and not by identifying the actual track, but they had identifying the smell. And that will also ring true to other predators. And when leopards or lions look for one another, you'll often find their noses down to the ground, so they're not actually staring at the track itself. They're really actually smelling and trying to work out where this animal has gone through sense of smell rather than sense of sight. So that's how it works in terms of tracking each other down. Also remember, a lot of these animals urinate and defecate, and that will allow a chemical signature to be left for them to follow. Thank you, gentlemen. Enjoy your afternoon. Stay safe. Hopefully they'll stay safe. Must be very difficult to be an impala. Anna, so you're wondering if impalas stot and springboks pronk, are they both essentially leaps? So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about and what Anna is asking, basically the impalas and the springboks have a very signature movement that they do. Now impalas, the stotting as it's called, will be when they run across a road or run across an open area, and they'll kick their back legs up and they almost do this kind of motion as they run, and so that is called their stotting. And the pronking of a springbok is when a springbok runs along and then it just bounces and goes like this, up and down, and almost looks like Tigger bouncing on his tail. Now essentially, Anna, yes, they are leaps. They could be defined as that. They're movements or exaggerated movements that allow them to gain air and land again. But the reason for them is not really to leap, it's to show predators that they're fit, healthy individuals. So as they run along, when they do that, if there's a leopard watching or a lion watching, it sees, okay, that animal, if it wasn't fit and healthy, it wouldn't be able to do that. So it's an agile animal, and therefore they look at others that might potentially be weaker and show some sign of injury or sickness, and so that's why they do it. But essentially, yes, it is a leap. It's the same as what a leopard would do if it jumped. They're using muscles to be able to actually jump up and leap, but it's just given its own name because it's a signature movement that is unique to those two species. So the pronking and the stotting, you only see it in those two. Alright, so that's basically the reason why. Now this is the area where apparently Shadow and Cub have been walking around all over the place. So I was just having a little look. I can see the guys have been walking here trying to check what's going on. So we're going to just check down, and actually I can see where they walked. So just in terms of a size difference between what we saw with the male track earlier. Senzo, I don't know how we're going to show this track. It's going to be very difficult. It's right next to my car here, but I'm going to try. Okay. So I'm just trying to get into a position where Senzo will be able to see. But Senzo, let me get out because this one's not as clear as what the male tracks were earlier. But if we have a look over here, there we go. There is a little cub track. So you can see the little back pad over here, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. And if I put my hand there, look at how small that is. It's only about that size from top to bottom. The male track that we saw earlier was probably about that size on my hand. So very different in terms of the sizing between this male track and the small young little female that is Shadow's cub. So this is where the cub would have gone. From what I can work out, they played quite a bit around here. They then went into this block and then went further south again. So we're going to try and just have a look around and see what's happening. There are trackers that are following these tracks, so I'm not going to get in their way too much. While we do that, let's go back to Taro, who I believe has got some view of those elephants and has vanquished those gremlins.